Everybody knows I have a fascination with UFOs, UAPs, and cryptozoology, and today is no different. I get to speak to the writer, director, and investigator behind the documentaries Alien Uncovered, or Aliens, plural, Uncovered. Clive Christopher, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
I am great. Listen, I always have fun with this stuff. People are like, oh, how can you take it seriously? And I was like, listen, I'm a religious man. I believe in an invisible God, and people make fun of me for that all the time. So, and being an American, first generation American whose family escaped religious persecution, I'm not going to belittle somebody else's ideology. Plus, I don't know your personal experience, what brought you into wanting to discover or look into UFOs and UAPs. So, this is why we're having the conversation of aliens uncovered today.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you for bringing me on, man. Let's dive into it because I got some stuff for you.
Listen, before we even get into the documentary, what was your first click or encounter or like, there's got to be something more?
My first encounter that I can remember was the Phoenix Lights, March 13th, 1997. I was 15 years old working at Sky Harbor Airport and catching the bus home. We were, cutting right across the city. As I was leaving the airport, I, saw these lights. I saw a few of them as we were turning and making a right. And as we made that right turn and began to go over the bridge, that's when I saw five lights and like a not like a V point, but more like this. It was massive, man. I mean, it flew over the airport, went south, and that's my introduction to the UFOs and UAPs and things like that.
Listen, if that's your introduction and it came with the Phoenix Lights, just getting on the bus,
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
that's going to spark everything.
Yeah, living in Phoenix, man. I mean, like, the state itself. I mean, even outside of UFOs, we've got, the lost treasures, the battles, the history of Jesuit minings, the Grand Canyon and what's going on over there. I mean, we got so much stuff here. It's almost like living in another state, but this state alone will keep the mind entertained. Especially living in Phoenix in the '90s and even the '80s, it was a much different city. But there's just so much that happens here that doesn't really get talked about. So
Really?
that's why I did the Aliens Uncovered series and investigating and talking with people all over the world. It sparked that interest, and then also with the other sightings that have occurred here in the state, there's so much more than just the Phoenix Lights. Even though the Phoenix Lights is probably the biggest of our generation, there's so many things that history wise that have happened in Arizona.
Sedona is just enough.
Man, listen, Sedona, the Grand Canyon. Now, if you want to look into the cultures themselves, the Hopi, that's one of the most interesting groups of people you'll come across worldwide. Then you got the Apaches and the Superstition Mountains. I mean, it goes on and on.
Right. And in 1997, it wasn't as accessible as it is now. Like if you had to do an internet search, you had to wait for the dial-up to connect. You had to get on America Online. This is how far we're going back with this.
Oh
If you
yeah,
didn't upgrade your plan, you were still getting charged every half an hour for
yeah.
using it by the minute. So like, the internet wasn't easily accessible in 1997 the way I can pull it up on my phone and go UAPs and then boom.
Yep, it's right there. It's right there. It's at the fingertips of everybody, and that's what kind of scares me a bit because we have to sift through a lot of the BS to find the real stuff. But yeah, I mean, you can go to TikTok. TikTok is really good for all kinds of UFO and UAP videos that are out there. But it you're right. It's just turn on the internet and look at Google. It'll pop. Sometimes Google gives it as like the home search, which is so weird because 10 years ago, literally 10 years ago, I was laughed at for the subject, like many of us laughed at UFOs aren't real, da 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 da. And now, I mean, it's on the homepage of Google. It's on every news outlet. Everybody's a whistleblower. All this stuff is coming out. So I'm glad that it's finally being talked about to the point it's no longer taboo anymore.
I mean, our logo is an alien head, and then our original logo is three aliens being beamed down. So we
Yeah.
were having fun with it, not making fun, but enjoying the topic itself. I'll give you one example before we get like deep into aliens uncovered. Because
Okay.
you have the people that you have the skepticals, you have the skeptics like myself. I haven't
Mhm.
seen anything, but I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. You'll have the people that are complete deniers, and then people on board where you are, that have had the experiences and are full on in. I
Mhm.
had gone to a conference. This was probably about 10 years ago, and I'm not going to throw them under the bus because, this is based on the crowd, not the conference itself. So I don't want people to have a negative thought of this. But there were people there that were for what is considered alternative science with the UAPs and the UFOs and then cryptozoology and then the USOs. We'll get into that a bit. And then the other camp that was there, and both were there but never intertwined with each other, were just the dirty hippies that wanted to go to the desert and smoke peyote and try to have an experience.
Mm.
How do you, for the skeptic crowd and then for the complete deniers, go, listen, you know, we're more on the alternative science side rather than the dirty hippie in the desert smoking peyote side?
Um, so I'm somebody that I've traveled the world in this, and both of these documentaries show that. Earlier, you said you're very religious. You haven't had an experience. Just from my work research, the places I've gone to, and they are in these movies. It's a very ancient story. Somehow it's gotten twisted, and a lot of it is lost over time. But for example, in Aliens Uncovered, ET or Man Made, which is my first documentary, um, I took a spiritual journey to Ephesus.
Mhm.
And if you're not familiar with Ephesus, Ephesus is the city that belonged to the Ephesians, and the Ephesians were a very important group of people. That's why they have a book in the Bible.
Right.
Ephesus is one of the churches in Revelations. Now, I've studied Revelations over 10 years easily, probably more like 15 years. I actually wrote a graduate level paper as an undergrad because I went there and mapped out the perimeter of the Church of Ephesus, and that was the Temple of Diana, the Temple of Artemis. And what I did after I mapped out the perimeter, I walked the entire perimeter, paced it back and forth as I wrote this paper, took my notes, journaled, talked with people. So that way, at some point, I was in the same location as John when he wrote First John, right? But also, when you look at Revelation, I'm sure you're familiar. You have the seven churches. I've been to two of those locations, and when I was there, the people there mentioned it to them. It felt like the angels of those churches were more than just priests or men. They had some sort of significance. This is what it's coming from, and I'm hearing from them. So their city, it's a historic city, but I mean, you can walk and touch all the relics. Some of them are guarded, but a majority of them you and I can walk and touch on and move and do whatever. And one of the things that we can physically see as human in the book of Revelation is the stone or the name that's written in white stone. So in this documentary, I show me going to the city, walking around the city, exploring. You see exactly what I'm talking about, but then also I show a name of an angel that's written on the white stone. And this is like right in the first like 5 or 10 minutes of the documentary. So it's a very ancient story that I've learned because what I've learned there brought me back to a very familiar place. And I talk about it. And that place is right here where I'm sitting at. For some reason, there's a not only a ancient connection, but it's a historical connection from the old land to the new land. And that connection is why the conquistadors came over here in the first place. It's why the land and all this stuff was fought over for centuries. But the story has just been forgotten over time. So when it comes comes to the hippies that are doing the peyote out in the desert, there's been times, I'll give you a prime example, where people of that element, they tend to smoke. You know, if you're familiar with studies, UFO occurrences and things happen when people go to light up a cigarette or a joint or whatever. And the reason being is because their mind, they're only thinking about smoking that cigarette. Break time, they go, and the only thing that's on that mind is the cigarette. They don't realize how clear their thought process is with content. They light that cigarette, they take their first hit, move away, they see a UFO. So that clear conscious or collected consciousness, right? So when it comes to the people out there in the desert that might be partying and having a good time, especially if they're in sacred areas, right? If you're sitting along the 33rd parallel, if you're in Sedona, the Grand Canyon, Joshua Tree, this is why Stephen Greer goes to Joshua Tree, right? But Arizona has a lot of historical land. Arizona and New Mexico itself, the story once again is it's very, very significant when it comes to this land. Now, also when it comes to the alternative science, we like to, as you know, I'm friends with Tom King. I know Travis Walton. I know Dr. Lynn. And we pull together groups. We do sky watches. I invite people out. My sky watches are free. I don't, we're going to come out there and learn. I'm not going to charge you an arm and a leg. You may not see something. You probably will see something. But we have sky watches. And then we like to share data across from one another. This, you can kind of look at it like it's a controlled group. Did we see something? This group didn't. Fortunately for me, when Netflix came out to film Investigation Alien, we saw a lot of stuff that night. And that is another aspect of clear thought with intent, but then a collective consciousness, because Arizona really has this tricky way of showing it. If somebody is out there and they're thinking about work and the relationship isn't this, and they got to go home and feed the kids, but they're trying to come and see UFOs, they got so much, they're not going to show up. This is just from my experience and years of holding group watches, sky watches, and talking with people. We've been doing this for years. But then the time, like with George Knapp and Netflix, we get out there, and I mean, the sun is just starting to set, so it's perfect time. Sunrise and sunset, those are the times to really look for UFOs here. And the sun is like starting to set, it's below the horizon. We're all getting out of the trucks, we're shaking hands. And, hello, George Knapp, Clive Christopher, everybody. And I start to walk back, and I see a light in the distance. And it's getting closer, and I got 20/15 vision. So at this time, I'm a spotter. I'm not behind the camera. So as a spotter, I'm trying to keep my eye on it, but I also want to make sure everybody else is seeing it, just in case I blink, I turn, I got other eyes on it, I can find it again. So I'm like, hey, Tom, I'm yelling to Tom King, get the beast out, get the cameras out. I'm watching it, I'm pointing it out. The camera crew, they're not ready. Nobody's ready. Nobody's ready to film anything. And I'm pointing it, and I have my phones on me, but for some reason I didn't even grab my phone. And I'm pointing it out. There it is. There it is. Now it's much closer. And there's no aviation lights. It's just a ball of light, energy. And as it gets right above us, we're all looking. It just hooks and goes north. And I'm sitting there like, yeah, no cameras out. This is a great environment because we weren't even supposed to be in that. That's my more intimate area because it's desert, raw desert. Somebody can trip, fall, hole, run off a cliff, something like that. But it just hooked north, and we're all just sitting there and all. And I looked at him, and I'm like, "This is my spot. This is the same location where I filmed the black triangle that's in Aliens Uncovered, ET, or Man-Made." But I can honestly see both sides because both sides, even though somebody might be over here having fun, drinking, partying, doing whatever they're doing, trying to get an experience, versus somebody that's running a control group, what we could call level-headed or whatever. At the end of the day, they're both trying to do the same thing. And when groups of people have that thought with intent, whether you're having fun or partying or you're trying to pull data, the same. You're going to get the same thing. The same thing's going to happen. And I've seen that in my research and footwork that I put just in Arizona. I don't go out to other places. I focus here because there's more than enough in this state for me to focus on. I don't touch on Roswell, even though I may be here in the future. Can't really talk about that. But, Roswell, Las Vegas, they got George Knapp and Corbell and those guys. They got these guys over here. I found my own lane. And here in Arizona, we got the Phoenix Lights. We got Travis Walton. We got the Marana Air Base. We got the Kingman sighting, which people are starting to find out might be the third location where Dwight Eisenhower and the supposed meeting with the aliens and this whole treaty was signed and discussed. We just got so many things that are going on here, man, that you know people come to the desert for a reason, and no matter what part of group you're in, you're going to get the same end result as long as that conscious and it's pure thought. This is what we're looking to do: communication. One person that's got it is Jake Barber. He talks about channeling them in. I got a buddy of mine and a friend of his. It's almost like they do the same thing. It seems like when they get together, there's just stuff that's always in the sky. We set up cameras at both locations, and I mean, even outside of the surveillance footage, typically Chris, who smokes cigarettes, goes outside to have a cigarette. Boom, there's something in the sky. You know what I mean? But Jake Barber seems to be right on, even down to um, the range. I don't know why. I don't know why they're not giving out the location because it's so guarded that I mean you couldn't unless you were like coming in from the border from Mexico. And this is why I'm really big on border patrol and protection, because the people that are coming from Mexico, they have no idea once they cross that border and you're in Arizona, that's the entire range. And they're testing new military weapons. You know what I mean? That you haven't even seen yet. So they don't know that they're walking on a live DOT, one of the very few live DOD training ranges in the nation. I mean, this range, it's massive. I think I talk about it in this one right here, Aliens Uncovered Origin. I got the shirt on. I talk about it. I name it. This came out in 2023, but the range is a very special place. This is where the 10 o'clock Phoenix Lights video was shot. And there's multiple events. The 8 o'clock, which traveled across the city, and then there's the 10 o'clock, which is in a more concentrated area. But that area it is known as the range. So he's somebody that him and Dr. Greer, when it comes to the CE5 experiment, I've attended. And once again, that's a group of people who are out there, with somebody who is, we call him an expert. And I've physically been to one of those events, and I know what to look for, living here in Phoenix and how the environment, and that one in specific, it was clear. And, this was in 2021, I believe, September. It was a clear day. And then once it started, or night, once it started, the clouds kind of rolled over. So that let me know that there's somebody there who may not be a believer, who may not, because Arizona, like I said, it gets cloudy, but typically it'll be like, because you got to know the solar winds and the process and all that stuff. So when the sun set, typically it'll get cloudy for a little bit, then it'll clear. But it was fine. I mean, we were out there till 2, 3 in the morning with Stephen Greer. That's the cool thing about his CE5 events. It goes until people get tired, But we were out there and it got cloudy for a bit, and then it cleared up maybe about an hour or two later. And like I said, there was a few things, but nothing to where it was like, oh my God, and he's going to put this into a film of his. But back to what we were talking about, and your question is, no matter what group you're in, if you're partying, you're having fun, you're trying to collect data, or if you're just by yourself, or if you're with your girlfriend and you just like to stargaze, there's those moments when your thought process and it's just clear. And that's when it happens.
I like that. Makes sense. Well, that leads us into Aliens Uncovered, Observe and Report, your latest installment, which comes out on April 22nd. And you got Breaking Glass Pictures to come on as one of the producers for this. It's only an hour and 15-minute documentary, but how did the partnership initially begin with Breaking Glass, and how did it evolve to where we are today and bring us to Observe and Report rather than, the other angles that you've taken previously?
Okay. So they've been a part of this, the entire time. And shout out to Breaking Glass for one, for believing in me, and then seeing, the value and appreciate the, I mean, yeah, 20, maybe 22, and all that stuff. So it was about 4 or 5 months. Actually, we closed the first May on my birthday, so that March of 22, March 26th of 2020 to be exact. And that film came August of let me clear that out. There we go. That film came out August of 2022. So with Observe and Report, actually, Observe and Report is like chapter. So they're all chaptered. ET or Man Made was the first one in 2022, August. Observe and Report is number 16, I think, or something like that. It was a pretty busy year last year, but Observe and Report, now that one gets really deep. And like I said, I appreciate Breaking Glass being there for the entire ride. Like Rich and Susan and Mike is a big, supporter, and not only somebody behind the scenes, EP, that provides the technical stuff, making sure that the sound is right, making sure the angles and all that stuff. But this one in particular, we've discovered a location, and this location is it's an area where there's just, the best way to put it, I got a 40-minute video, and when we speed it up to about a minute, it looks like a busy intersection in the sky, though. And I mean, it's just stuff everywhere. Some satellites. There's no drones because there's an airport nearby, and but this area in specific is a very important place to the ancient Hohokam peoples. And there's mountains, foothills, and this one specific one. Uh, there's just everything above it, lights above, on the ground. It's really interesting. So we have gone into observe and report mode where we're setting up the cameras. It could be viewed as your own mini little Skinwalker Ranch, right? Except it's in the city, and this area, it's I mean, different people, walks of life, they're reporting some of the same things, and these aren't crazy individuals. It's in a pretty nice area of the city, and things left and right all over the sky. So we go out there, we're walking the ground, we're discovering things on ground level and up in the air. So this one comes out April, and then we have Observe and Report 2, which really, both of these, they showcase the team. So there's a team. It's not just me. There's a team of about 5 of us, and it's Arizona's Rogue Recon and Research Team. So we're not just stuck on UFOs and aliens and UAPs. We, all kinds of stuff, paranormal stuff. We got the Superstition Mountains out here. We got the Little Greens. We got all kinds of stuff that's going on. So anyway, we're out at this area, and the things that we find, the things that happen, the things that, I mean, there's a discovery. There's a couple discoveries that we make in this specific location. And that's what Observe and Report is focusing on, 1 and 2, is we're focusing on this area. You see these videos that we release, new videos. One of them in specific, it's a blue orb. It's on the ground, and we've tried to recreate it. Um, we've zoomed in, we've upscaled it to like 4K, and we cannot figure out what this is. Everybody on the team, I believe George Knapp might have seen this video. I sent it to one of the producers he works with, but he's definitely seen the video, the producer. It's out now. It can be seen, on the internet, but we actually show the scientific process, I guess is at least what we call it, to where, we try to compare other blue orb videos. And in that process, we have debunked some of their other blue orb videos. Like there's one we find out it's the International Space Station, but with the type of camera that it was being filmed with, it made it look blue. We've matched RGB values of the color coding in the blue. This light orb in specific, there seems to be like this white keyhole inside. It is a ball of energy, is just the best way to put it. We zoom in, zoom out. We go out there during the daytime. I mean, it's a whole process that, 4 or 5 of us, that I can think of off the bat. We're all in there. Tom King's in there, Dan Starkey, Chris Donald, Brian Luggs. I pronounced this wrong. Brian Suggs is in there. So, I mean, Observe and Report really takes a turn to where we start to not only highlight, but focus on the big discovery that we made in this area and why this area is so important.
What has been your personal favorite discovery? And what has been one that you didn't even want to touch because you thought it was just totally bogus, that was just, let's put it this, urban legend, let's say?
Man, it's almost like you're reading my mind and you know what's going on. It's like you've seen these movies already. But so the one is in this area in specific. What I'll say is this: we have successfully used UFO and UAP activity as a prospecting tool to find gold on the ground level. As of now, it's microscopic flakes of gold, but we have done, and not only, it's not like this is just something we kind of, thought about. Oh my God, is it real? No, the Vatican, they have a telescope here in Arizona on Mount Graham. And I talk about this in Jesuit Secrets. Came out prior to Observe and Report, actually. Up on Mount Graham, they have a telescope. And at one point I think it's called, I can't think of it right now, but it spelled out Lucifer. So they had to change the name and they went through it. I don't know if it was intentional or whatever, but it's 3 telescopes that make up one. And when you combine the letters, it made out Lucifer, whatever. So the Vatican has openly, here in Arizona, which is weird, they got a telescope here, right? But here in Arizona, they're very open, right? The Jesuits and all that, they're very open about searching for other life forms, extraterrestrial life forms. But that's not the end game. They've always been here searching for lost gold, rare gold, specific the Lost Dutchman gold, the Peralta mines, the Apache gold cities, right? So this is the whole myth thing that I was afraid of, because in this area, right, it's known as the foothills of the sacred Black Mountain. And there's like 4 or 5 locations that we begin to highlight in this area. We take you through them. There's petroglyphs that are preserved. The same area where I filmed the Black Triangle. It's funny how the last installment, which all of this is done, I've already filmed it. Chapter 20 is done. But the last installment ends up right at the first one. And I mean, this isn't scripted at all. It's exactly how it played out. But this area could possibly be, based off of the type of gold that has been discovered. Keep in mind, it is microscopic flakes. But I said in the beginning, this is why the Spanish conquistadors came over here in the first place. If you know anything about Cibola y Quivira, and this is supposedly myth, the fabled 7 cities of gold. But in reality, the Spanish conquistadors searched for this for 350 years. Father Kino, it's known, was shown one of the locations by the Apaches. And the Apaches everybody were afraid of the Apaches. But somehow the Apaches fell in love with Father Kino. And it's known that they showed him one of these 7 cities of gold. And as I'm out in this area, because like I said, we found an area where there is gold, and I started to collect these samples. And I don't think I have one in here. I don't. I have some. It's in another room. As I started to collect these samples, the first time I noticed it, it was a massive rock that just came out of the ground easy. And then I broke it. And I mean, I've been working out a little bit, trying to get in shape, but I know I'm not getting that strong. You know what I'm saying? And it almost appears like a plaster with gold flakes, and it's really weird. Now, I do have a geologist. His name is Dan. He says it's like volcanic regurgitation. And I like that idea. Dan's very smart. He's been doing this a long time. He owned the Crown King mine, so he knows his stuff. And like I said, you look at it, and then even with the dirt that comes out, I mean, it's just all these gold flakes inside of it. So, like I said, we have successfully used UFO activity as a tool to find gold. Superstitions, we just did it in near Buckeye. So this is something that it's not just one area, it's multiple areas. But Arizona's known for having gold.
Right. So I'm gonna pause you right there if that's okay, real quick.
Go ahead.
Since you keep talking, since we're talking about gold right now and the lost seven cities of gold, but this can also take us back 7,000 years into Samaria with the legends of the Anunnaki creating humanity to mine gold for them. So how does that 7,000 years in the Middle East now connect all the way to, the Phoenix area on the other side of the planet, other than the latitude?
Yeah. So that right there is very important. What you said, other than the latitude, there's certain areas here. Well, you got to look at it. It's holy land, but then you have to look at. I think the mountains are the key to everything. Some people just come out here and say the mountains are calling to me. So we have to look at the composition of what these mountain ranges are made of. And you'll learn that the composition of the mountains here in the American Southwest match some of the same exact location or composition of some of the locations that are in the Middle East. I believe some of the granite, and some of the granite that's at Camelback Mountain can be found either at Stonehenge or the pyramids of Giza.
Hmm.
But it's just interesting how some of that same rock miles away in around the world. But then the big thing is the 33rd parallel. The 33rd parallel, Phoenix sits on the 33rd parallel. Roswell sits on the 33rd parallel. If you go all the way on the other side of the earth, where Roswell is Mount Hermon. Now, you're a religious guy. You're familiar with the transfiguration of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what
I've
happened
been to Mount Hermon, yeah.
Yeah, you've been? Oh, you've been there?
Yeah.
Wow. So you know what this is like, right? Jesus went there with, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was Matthew, John, and Peter, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I know it, three of the apostles. And Jesus turned in the light, and they saw this. They documented it, came back, human form. And, I can only imagine the look on their faces and he was interacting with other lights, and then came back down and continued to go on to be Jesus. And I show some photos, and ET are man-made. I was in Rome in 2011, so I had went on this whole month journey, but part of it was Rome, and then eventually went on to Ephesus and a few other locations. And while I was at Rome, my professor, he got me access to go beneath the Vatican City, and they had these tunnels and very narrow tunnels, and there was things cut out, and it was this glass, and it was some shield or something like that. So in a specific area, they're like, well, this is Jesus, and before that, Jesus didn't look the color. What I'm seeing, that Jesus is darker than me. I'm like, whoa, hold up. So I wasn't supposed to take pictures at the time the iPhone with the camera came out. So I had my camera lens with the cap on, but I had my iPhone. And I had to take pictures because what the person was saying, there's one in specific. It's a mosaic from the 11th century, I believe, or 10th century. And there's one in the middle, and then there's these different pictured images along the side, and I put it in there. I won't go back to Rome until I get something in writing that says I didn't break the law, but I feel like I broke the law, especially putting it in a documentary that went worldwide. But I show these images, and I mention I do a lot of things like I'll show it, but I don't directly say it like I did in this one about the range. But I show that image, and down in the corner, you see Mount Hermon, and the person is literally going through everything about Mount Hermon and the significance of it and so on and so forth. And I was like blown away. And then when I went to Ephesus and learned what I learned there, it just seems to be one thing we didn't call whoever these people were, we didn't call them angels years ago. The words have changed and evolved like cannabis, right? We use the word marijuana now. Back then, we didn't use the word marijuana. It was cannabis. And there's thousands of years of documentation on it. Back then, we didn't call them angels. What did we call them? I don't know. We have the word angels, like you said, Anunnaki, light beings to the native, our native brothers and sisters. But seems to be every culture goes back and they draw the same conclusion. It's the same conclusion. There was a creation prior to humans, and you know this. They were made of light. Some of them got jealous. For some reason, we were special. We were more special than they were. And some of them decided to fall, but some of them, a majority of them, did not. And is it possible that because of this holy land, that connection between the Middle East and everything that was going on over there, Lebanon, the old story versus here, which that's kind of controversial because there's some people that will say they actually came here and got all the information from over here and took it over there. When you look at some of these mountains and structures, and yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But that connection is the land itself. There was holy land there, and there's holy land here. And you look at the composition of the areas, it's nearly identical. So like I said, this right here is just opinionated. I could make a strong argument for some of the locations that are written in Revelation when you describe the woman coming down the river, the Red River, and all that stuff. I can make a strong argument that that's the Grand Canyon. Very strong argument. And I know historically it's all the Middle East, but if you think outside the box a bit, and you look at the Hopi and how their creation story, and they don't even follow the Bible. That's the thing. There's not a lot that religious aspect isn't in their spirituality and in their beliefs. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there, especially to the Book of Revelation. And once again, I'm somebody that has been out there, and I've been to a lot of these places, and I've been out and mingled with people and talked with them, and it feels like the conclusion was drawn many times years ago. And if you don't have some sort of system or whatever, that I don't know who you pray to or whatever, but figure it out, because it seems like a lot of this stuff is what we've been told is actually real.
And then I'm gonna leave you with these two things. All right. So the fallen angels, will use the modern terminology for angel as we put it today versus beings of light, etc. Being jealous of us, and we do know of the fallen angels and the demons. And then us being special, and we've been told cross-culturally we are special for some reason.
Yep.
Why the heck are we killing each other if we're the special ones?
The the plan, the design is the creator, and then those beings were supposed to deliver messages to us. And I think why we're so special is because we're made of mud and light. And let's just face it, Earth is one hell of a place to be at. It's a lot of things you can do here. If you've never swam in the Mediterranean, I recommend it. You know, if you've never hiked or gone down into the Grand Canyon, check it out. You know, there's a lot of things, beautiful things on this planet. Even the sunsets here in Arizona. I mean, just the simple things, right? It's a very fun place to be. And there's rules to this being here. If you're here, you can die. You know, the debt that all men pay, it's death. And going back to like some of the things that are being said, they're thousands of years ahead of us. You know, we could point to some of the stories, Sodom and Gomorrah, where the angels had to hide in human form because the angry mob could have probably killed them, right? And if I'm wrong, correct me, but they had to hide in human form. So that connection between all of this and why those messages are distorted. The I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but if I want to receive my messages, it's probably a safer way. If I receive my messages, I go to the mountaintop, man, like, you know, Moses did, like Jesus did, like all these other people have done. And I'm somebody that has taken spiritual walks. You know, I went and mingled with the people in Ephesus. I've been to not the actual church is torn down, but you know, the church of Philadelphia. I've been to these places. I've talked with these people, slept out there and, you know, worked and, you know, built bonds. And the messages are distorted. And then not only that, the the evil side, the bad side. Somebody broke down the way evil to me. It was really interesting. And that's a whole nother conversation. But those messages are distorted, but not only that, you can look into the people's eyes and you can see that there's no soul there. Um, whether it's drugs, whether it's through trauma, or just simple brainwashing. There's no soul there when you look at these people that, you know, school shootings and all this violence, you know, there's no soul there. So the messages that these people that we're receiving, because that's the plan. That's a part of the plan. That's just the basics. They bring us messages and we have free choice, right? We have to make that decision. And these messages, now this is the question that I like to ask, especially when it comes to the religious aspect. Is it possible? This is something we really got to look at. Is it possible that more of the angels have fell in the present? Have more of those angels been convinced to fall? Another thing is this: the ones that have fallen and have infiltrated the government, I mean, it's not a secret. You know, it's not a secret. Are they building technology to get back to the heavens? I just like to ask simple questions because my mother was very religious and I didn't believe in God in the church. I saw a lot of evil in the church growing up as a kid. But it was funny how I got older and I started going to these places and I didn't even look at them from a religious. I'm a history, I love history. So I wanted to know. And then not only that, I'm writing papers. I like to do cool shit, you know? And our relationship and how we began to bond and form and then talk about creation, God, and the creation prior to humans. And we were able to, I don't want to say like this is the, but we were connecting a lot of dots that made sense. I mean, it's documented evidence that Jesus was a very, very special individual. And now I'm just talking from a historical aspect. I've seen it. He was very special. He could do things that nobody else could do. What if there are other people out there and we just don't recognize it in present day? I don't know. But there seems to be some historical, biblical, religious, spiritual, whatever it is, there's some truth to all of that stuff. And it just seems as though, even down to the plan itself, like you said, why are we killing each other? Overall, I think those messages are distorted. And I think more and more people are making the choice to do these things. That's just Clive's opinion, my opinion.
I dig it. And Clive, April 22nd is coming up quick. Aliens Uncovered, Observe and Report is coming out. You know, why do we need to sit down and watch this particular documentary?
Observe and Report shows different walks, different people, different walks of life coming together to bring you answers. We're not we're not fueled or controlled by anything. This is genuine thought process, and we're bringing you, what we find, and it's all different answers. Some people believe this, some people believe that, but that's why we're successful, because we're able to have disagreements. Nobody gets mad at each other. Nobody, fights and all that stuff. And Observe and Report, it brings a new, I shouldn't say new, but I mean, technically it is, because you don't see people in groups outside of Jake Barber. That's why I pay attention to him, because he has a group of individuals that he's working with. And these people are drawing conclusions. They're putting in the work, the footwork, the groundwork to say, hey, look, this is why we think this is this. If we're wrong, then we're wrong. You know what I mean? But this video, this documentary, this shows that. Observe and Report 1 and 2, and I believe Observe and Report 2 comes out like May 12th or something like that. It comes out immediately after, within 2 to 3 weeks. And, we show just the process of what it's like, group of individuals, all grown. We're not out here trying to get rich. Dan is doing good. I'm doing well. Chris is well, retired. Tom spends probably $5,000 a month on sky watching equipment. Nobody's trying to get rich here. We're trying to provide answers to the public, and we waited patiently for the congressional hearings and the disclosure. And as you learned, nothing really came out of that.
Right.
So at least with what we're doing, we're not trying to tell you what to think, right? But we're just wanting you to know Arizona's a hot spot. We know where these hot spots are. This is what we do to prove it. If you're ever out here, come hang out with us. We do sky watches all the time, and they're free. You might see something, you might not. But, if you ever get the chance to talk to George Knapp and those Netflix guys, it's there. It's right there. They showed some of it. They didn't even show everything that happened that night. And I mean, we were, my neck was kind of sore. We were just like this, some were satellites and stuff like that. But yeah, man, I mean, you come out here and you're going to learn something. That's the thing. You're going to walk away from our films. You've learned something. You got a history lesson about the state. You've learned about the Jesuits. You've learned about the gold. Why there's so many UFO sightings in Arizona. Back to the Sumerians. Are they hovering over areas where gold is? Is this the connection? We don't know. We don't know. We're trying to. There's one thing that I'll share with you before we get out of here. So what we've learned is, and there's actually a YouTube video, and there's patents on this. So in some UFO sightings and cases, there's been this white powder dust that has been found in certain areas. And this is why the gold connection is big. Because with this white powder, we've learned that white powder is actually gold. So what happens is, and Dan can talk about this way better than I can, but there's this like heating burner system. You put gold on there and you heat it, and you continue to heat it. It burns and turns into a white powder. If you continue to heat that white powder and you turn the temperature up, eventually that white powder would disappear, completely disappear. And then once you turn it off, temperature's lower, it shows back up. So one of the theories that we think, and we're going to test this with these samples that we have, is we think that they're using the gold to burn it, turn it into a white powder, and then once it heats up, it heated up enough, it disappears. We believe that they're using this to go from dimension to dimension because that white powder's still there. We just physically can't see it. So did it go into the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension? I mean, we know the first, second, and third is right here in this room, right there in your room, right? Is the fourth dimension somewhere in there? Probably. We don't know. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that we haven't gotten any answers. We haven't tested this yet. But we believe that they are possibly, if this is the case, they're using gold, burning it as a fuel, which all makes sense, to cross dimensions.
All right, I'm intrigued. I can't wait for the full-length documentary on that one when we go beyond the theory. Clive Christopher, has been a great pleasure chatting with you. Next time I come to Arizona, we're hanging out. I'm just going to make sure not to come in the summer because I came in June one time and it was the stupidest thing I've ever done. So let us know where we can find you on social media to connect. And we'll remind everybody April 22nd from Broken Glass Picture or Breaking Glass Pictures. I'm sorry, Breaking Glass Pictures. You know, Aliens Uncovered, Observe and Report.
So I'm on Facebook, Clive Christopher, Aliens Uncovered, on TikTok, Clive Christopher as well. So you can type in those names, you'll find me. Instagram is Byfields, which is the company name. And those are the platforms that I'm on right now. I do have a website. You can, it's up, but I don't remember the actual link because it's one of those free sites. But if you go onto IMDb, type in Clive Christopher and look at the official website, it'll show you everything we've got coming up, all the new stuff. Not even, we touch into the paranormal, aliens uncovered, and all that. That's just a small little section of the paranormal, right? And here in Arizona, we got the soups, we got the dreamy draw, which is another one. Like, oh my God, we got so much. So you can find that website on IMDb. I believe the link is also on my Instagram at Byfield. But yeah, those are the three locations, and you'll see everything that we're doing, not only with the alien stuff, but outside of the alien things.
Clive, thank you so much for your time, man. I greatly appreciate chatting with you. And like I said, when I come to Arizona, we're definitely getting together.
Man, we're gonna make it happen. Thank you for having me on, and you have a blessed day.
You too.